Good morning, it's Victoria Lorient Fabish. How's everybody doing? On this glorious, beautiful day in Toronto, we're having some really good weather, thank you, universe. I wanted to talk a little bit about troubleshooting a feeling of consistently feeling like you're sort of almost always feeling rejected. It's like an autopilot feeling. I find that that's a really common thing. I'm just going to share this live with as many pages as I'm able to. But hang on a second, I just want to move my camera so I can actually see on my computer what I'm doing here. Sorry about that. So I'm going to just share. And what I want you to do is share as well as you come online. Because this is the kind of thing that is important for people to understand from a psychotherapist's perspective. What happens to people when they come from that feeling of always feeling like they are rejected? And do you feel that? Do you recognize that in yourself? And often people who do come from that as almost like an autopilot response. If they've come from possibly a family of origin in which they didn't feel like they belonged, or they didn't feel like that they were part of a community, these are the kinds of things that might stimulate that autopilot feeling. So from a very young age, there's a feeling of I don't fit in, or I don't, that kind of feeling, or possibly there was bullying, or possibly there was sort of, really a feeling of you were not part of something for a very long time, and so you started to tell yourself the story that, and it is a story that you just are always going to be rejected, and so that there's always a feeling of overprotection going on, and a feeling of chip on your shoulder, and a feeling of, this is not belongingness is not for me as a concept, and so there's this isolation tendency. There is feelings of, I'm not even, allowed to participate. And that is an incredibly painful experience, because people just, really end up not, they actually contribute to the problem. And so I want people to stop and start to troubleshoot the concept of feeling rejected. Maybe there's a legitimate reason you feel rejected, but often, when it's just an autopilot feeling constantly there, maybe it's not legitimate as a feeling. I recognize that in myself sometimes, and it's something that you have to stop and really look at and troubleshoot. I feel like there is an opportunity whenever a constant feeling is sitting there to allow yourself the time to analyze it, to look at it, to experience it, and to sort of almost, you've got to feel it deeply in order for you to deeply understand it. Because if you don't feel it deeply, you will not deeply understand something. And to me, the troubleshooting of autopilot feelings is the essence of transformation. Because if you have an autopilot feeling that's showing up constantly, this feeling of, I always feel rejected, this is a rejection feeling inside, rejection, then you have to work at understanding, why does that constantly show up? Why does that constantly show up? And if you're coming on, make yourself known, make your presence known, and share this, because this is information that I believe will really help people. So the first thing to look at is, where did this come from? This autopilot feeling of rejection. Did this come from a feeling in the childhood? Did this come from feeling bullied? Did this come from, I have a client who years ago I used to work with, and acne, he had a lot of acne, and just that experience just basically set him up to constantly feel like he just doesn't belong, and a feeling of rejection energy within himself. So he would go about the business of constantly protecting himself. And so not only did he have then an acne issue, then it became a weight issue. And so it became this massive sort of protector energy, simply because he said to himself, I will always be rejected no matter what. So that's important information. At the same time, what is powerful is that when he started to understand that, and understand that he sort of created this overly protective shell around him, that started to change, and he started to lose some weight. He decided that, he would spend some money on helping the scars become less visible, and things became, for him, not that he needed to do that, but he wanted to do that because he wanted to participate, because we have an inner core feeling that, from our biology, that we want to belong, that we want to be part of a community, that we want to experience, a sense of coming together and communing with people and talking with people. And it's a core need that most of us feel, and a lot of people will just sort of cut off the need for community because the feeling of I will be rejected is the fear I will be rejected will be so big, so they don't even put themselves out there. And one of the biggest things to troubleshoot that is to work on you reaching out to other people. And I know that's scary. Reaching out to other people and knowing that you might get a yes, sort of I call it like lobbing the tennis ball over. And you might get a yes and you might get a no, but essentially you start to take your power back. That's really what's powerful about this, is you start to take your power back. And there's so much incredible richness that comes from relationships. Relationships are where we learn the most, where we grow the most, and where we challenge ourselves the most and troubleshoot ourselves the most. So having an amazing decision that you make and a courageous conversation with yourself that you make to reach out is one of the first steps in confronting your feeling of rejection. Because when you reach out, you're going to feel that feeling of rejection, and then you get an opportunity to look at what your experience is in that moment. And then usually I say again, write in your journal and have a real conversation, a courageous conversation with yourself about where that might have come from, how that's impacting you, how that experience is possibly causing you to create more distance from others than you need to be. And then I suggest that when you are involving yourself in putting yourself out there more, set up some good rules of engagement for yourself, possibly some good boundaries, possibly some boundaries for yourself, as in if you're getting tired or you're feeling overwhelmed, you spend a certain amount of time on putting yourself out there, and then you go back and retreat and self-care. But it's important that you not deprive yourself of the really important lesson of overcoming this feeling of constantly feeling like you will be rejected, almost like an autopilot experience. So that is part of the journey of healing this. It's not quick, but it does work when you decide to put yourself on a program of overcoming an autopilot feeling. I know that people are afraid of these types of things, but it's such a powerful thing to overcome something that you feel constantly. And I work with people so often in my office who experience depression and also experience a feeling of autopilot rejection. And so I believe the two come hand in hand, depression and rejection. And so troubleshooting this is part of the journey. And don't just let it sit there. Work on it, and allow yourself to be brave enough to just test out the waters a little bit. And those waters are so incredibly tumultuous sometimes. But if you confront yourself and not just sit in sort of isolation, I feel like you will very powerfully change your relationship to other human beings and community. Because as I said, when you involve yourself in community, and when you involve yourself with other human beings, I believe there's a greater opportunity for growth and a greater opportunity for you to become more of who you are really, and not just this overprotective person. Because the walls of overprotection, I'm telling you, they don't. Hi, Jennifer. They don't serve you. I believe they only serve you when there's true danger in your life. But very often there isn't danger. It's just a question of an internal need for overprotection, and working with that piece of you that is always saying, I'm afraid I'm going to be rejected. I'm afraid I'm going to be rejected. And then, so I'm not going to put myself out there. I'm going to overly protect. All of that, I believe, is an opportunity for you to go, okay, what's really here? Where did this come from? And one thing I do want to say, you might be a person that is more introverted, which is fine. Introversion is not the same as overprotection. Take care of your introverted self. You may not want to be around people all the time. You want to take time alone and all that great stuff. That is not a feeling of constantly fear of rejection. Introversion is something else. But overprotection, and so is part of the journey of feeling like you're always going to be rejected no matter what. So, and I believe a lot of deprivation of good communication and good practice and good community and good building of self and building of community is really lost. So when you go about the business of trying to troubleshoot that, work on where it came from, work on rules of engagement for yourself to put your big toe out there, try it out, do some loving affirmations of yourself so that when you do feel that feeling of rejection, you are not just at the mercy of your gunky feelings of rejection. Work on loving yourself, work on accepting yourself, work on being your best friend. Maybe you can set up a little bit of a plan where you maybe tell a good friend that you're going to be doing this, or you tell your therapist, so that you can both together work on the feelings that will come up, the autopilot feelings of rejection that might come up. And so you're not doing this just as an exercise in torture, but you're doing this as an exercise in growth. And it is good morning, Lynn. This is an exercise in growth and an exercise in having courageous acts, courageous choices, courageous conversations with yourself. And you don't need to constantly just sit in the pain of it. You just dip your toe in, experience a little more courage and a little more putting yourself out there, and then feelings will come in, and you'll do some journaling, do some positive affirmations, like my favorite one, which is, I am loved, valued, and worthy, no matter what I think, say, or do. And I love that as a generalized affirmation for people who are trying to do things that cause fear in them or feelings of negativity toward themselves. So I hope all this helps. I think it's going to be just something that you need to listen to again and again if you're working with your feelings of autopilot rejection. And don't just sit in that. Troubleshoot it, work it, be courageous, and then you can play on bigger stages of life. You can have if you work on that and master it, you can be involved in many bigger experiences, which are about growing your soul. All right? So I wish you a beautiful day. You can always find me on visualizationworks.com, which is my website, where you can get my books, Find Your Self Culture, and Connecting Rewire Your Relationship Culture. And make sure you join my group, Positive Self Culture, Relationship Culture, and Family Culture, because we are there to support each other on that. And like my page, Courageous Conversations. All right, have a beautiful day. Much love to you. I'm wishing you courageous conversations with yourself and others, and to troubleshoot autopilot feelings like the feeling of constantly feeling like you're going to be rejected. All right, have a brilliant day. It's so pretty out there in Toronto, and I'm wishing everyone the best and the most amazing energies of the planet. Mwah. Love you. Bye.